The mariachi played on, oblivious to the growing unease in the cantina. His music, a vibrant tapestry of trumpets, violins, and guitars, should have been a source of joy, but tonight it felt more like a dirge. The air, thick with the scent of tequila and despair, hung heavy, punctuated by the rhythmic clinking of glasses. Elena, huddled in the shadows, watched the musicians with a growing dread. Their faces, normally alight with the passion of their music, were now contorted in a grotesque parody of joy. Their eyes, usually sparkling with mischief, were now hollow, glazed over with a chilling emptiness. The lead singer, a man with a voice that could melt the coldest heart, now crooned a chilling ballad of death and despair. His voice, once a vibrant tenor, was now a raspy, guttural growl, each note a chilling premonition of doom. The cantina, once a lively hub of laughter and music, had fallen silent. The patrons, frozen in fear, dared not move, their eyes glued to the musicians, their souls gripped by a paralyzing terror. The mariachi, their instruments now imbued with a malevolent energy, continued their macabre performance, their music a siren song luring the patrons deeper into the abyss. Elena, a seasoned traveler, had seen her share of strange sights and heard her share of unsettling tales. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared her for this. This was no ordinary band. This was something else entirely. Something ancient, something evil. The legend of the malevolent mariachi had been whispered in hushed tones for generations. A band of musicians cursed by a vengeful spirit, their music said to bring death and despair to all who heard it. Some said they were the souls of lost musicians, condemned to wander the earth, their music a torment to the living. Others claimed they were instruments of a dark deity, their music a conduit for unimaginable horrors. Elena, despite her fear, knew she had to do something. She couldn't just sit back and watch as these innocent people were consumed by the darkness. But what could she do against such a powerful force? As the music intensified, a chilling realization dawned upon her. The mariachi weren't just playing music. They were feeding on the fear of the audience. Their music, a conduit for their dark power, grew stronger with each terrified gasp, each stifled scream. Elena, remembering an old folk tale, decided to fight fire with fire. She began to sing, her voice, though trembling, rising above the chilling melodies of the mariachi. She sang a song of hope, a song of defiance, a song that celebrated life and joy. At first, her voice was drowned out by the cacophony of the mariachi's music. But slowly, her voice began to gain strength, her melody weaving its way through the chilling harmonies, offering a beacon of light in the encroaching darkness. The patrons, initially hesitant, began to join in, their voices, at first timid, growing louder and stronger with each passing moment. The cantina, once a chamber of terror, began to fill with the sound of hope, a chorus of defiance rising against the forces of darkness. The mariachi, their music now met with resistance, began to falter. Their faces contorted in rage, their eyes burning with malevolent fury. They tried to drown out the chorus of hope, but their music, once so powerful, now sounded weak, desperate. Finally, with a collective surge of defiance, the patrons' voices overwhelmed the mariachi's music. The chilling harmonies crumbled, the malevolent energy dissipated, and the cantina was once again filled with the sound of life, the sound of joy. The mariachi, their power broken, slumped to the ground, their instruments falling silent. The musicians, their eyes now filled with a chilling emptiness, lay motionless, their souls, it seemed, finally at rest. The patrons, exhausted but exhilarated, breathed a collective sigh of relief. The cantina, once a chamber of terror, was now filled with the warmth of camaraderie, the air once thick with despair, now alive with the sweet scent of victory. Elena, her voice hoarse but triumphant, looked around at the faces of the grateful patrons. She had faced her fear. She had defied the darkness, and she had saved the cantina from the clutches of the malevolent mariachi. But as she looked at the lifeless forms of the musicians, a chilling thought crept into her mind. Had she truly defeated them? Or had she simply driven them underground, their malevolent energy now lurking in the shadows, waiting for the next unsuspecting victim? The legend of the malevolent mariachi, Elena knew, would continue to be whispered in hushed tones, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of the world. And she, the woman who had faced the music, would forever bear the scars of that terrifying night, a constant reminder of the power of fear and the courage it takes to overcome it. The following is an expansion of the story, focusing on the origins of the malevolent mariachi and the psychological impact of their music. The legend of the malevolent mariachi, as Elena later learned, had its roots in a tragic event that occurred centuries ago. A group of talented musicians, renowned for their vibrant music and joyous performances, had angered a powerful sorcerer. In a fit of rage, the sorcerer cursed the musicians, condemning them to an eternity of torment. Their music, once a source of joy, was transformed into a weapon of despair, each note imbued with a malevolent energy that preyed upon the deepest fears of the listener. The musicians, trapped in their cursed existence, were forced to wander the earth, their music a constant reminder of their tragic fate. Over time, the legend of the malevolent mariachi evolved, becoming a chilling cautionary tale, a warning against the dangers of unchecked ambition and the wrath of the supernatural. The music, initially a weapon of the sorcerer, became a force of its own, feeding on the fear it generated, growing stronger with each terrified soul it consumed. Elena, as she delved deeper into the legend, discovered that the music of the malevolent mariachi had a profound psychological impact on its listeners. It preyed upon their deepest insecurities, their darkest fears, twisting their minds into knots of paranoia and despair. The music could induce hallucinations, causing the listener to see and hear things that weren't there. It could manipulate emotions, turning joy into sorrow, hope into despair. It could even drive people to madness, their minds shattered by the relentless onslaught of fear and despair. Elena, haunted by the memories of that terrifying night, began to experience the lingering effects of the mariachi's music. She would wake up in the middle of the night, the chilling melodies echoing in her ears, the images of the musicians' lifeless faces haunting her dreams. She would see shadows where there were none, hear whispers on the wind, and feel a constant sense of dread, a feeling that something terrible was always about to happen. The music, though silenced, continued to haunt her, a constant reminder of the darkness she had faced, and the lingering fear that it might return. Elena sought solace in the company of others who had witnessed the malevolent mariachi. They shared their experiences, their fears, their lingering trauma. They formed a support group, a community of survivors, each offering comfort and support to the others. Through shared experiences and mutual support, they began to heal, to reclaim their lives from the shadows of fear. They learned to recognize the signs of the mariachi's influence, to identify the whispers of fear, and to resist their insidious power. Elena, through her own resilience and the support of her fellow survivors, eventually learned to live with the lingering effects of the mariachi's music. She continued to hear the chilling melodies occasionally, but she no longer allowed them to consume her. She had faced the music, she had defied the darkness, and she had emerged stronger, wiser, and more resilient. The legend of the malevolent mariachi, however, continued to live on, a chilling reminder of the power of fear and the importance of facing it with courage and resilience. The following is a further exploration of the themes of fear, guilt, and redemption. The malevolent mariachi, in their cursed existence, became a reflection of the human condition, a manifestation of our deepest fears and anxieties. Their music, a haunting lament for lost innocence and shattered dreams, resonated with the collective unconscious, tapping into the primal fears that reside within us all. The fear of the unknown, the fear of death, the fear of losing control. These are the universal fears that the mariachi's music exploited, amplifying them until they consumed the listener whole. But the legend of the malevolent mariachi also explored the themes of guilt and redemption. The musicians, cursed for their hubris, were forced to atone for their past transgressions, their music a constant reminder of their sins. Elena, in her quest to defeat the Mariachi, was also grappling with her own guilt, the guilt of surviving while others had perished. She carried the weight of their deaths on her shoulders, haunted by the image of their lifeless faces. By confronting the Mariachi, by defying their music, Elena was not only saving herself, but also finding a measure of redemption for the victims of the malevolent Mariachi. She was offering them a measure of peace, a release from the torment that had consumed them. The legend of the malevolent Mariachi, in its final analysis, is a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked ambition, the consequences of our actions, and the importance of facing our fears with courage and compassion. The desert wind, a rasping, hot sigh, carried the faint, mournful strains of a violin. Not the joyous, vibrant melodies of a typical mariachi, but something else, something thin and brittle, like the bones of a long-dead bird. Elias, his truck a rusted, wheezing beast, gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white. He'd been driving for hours, the desolate stretch of Highway 285, a black ribbon unspooling under the sickly yellow glow of his headlights. He'd ignored the warnings. The old gas station attendant, a wizened man with eyes like desert pebbles, had shaken his head, his voice a low, gravelly murmur. The Mariachi. They say he still plays out there. You don't want to hear him, son. Not out here. Elias, a city boy with a taste for the macabre, had scoffed. Just an old wives' tale, he'd said, and paid for his gas. Now, alone in the vast empty expanse of the Chihuahuan desert, the old man's words echoed in his ears, a chilling premonition. The music grew louder, the violin's melody a twisted, melancholic wail. It was accompanied by the rhythmic thump of a guitarin, deep and resonant, and the sharp staccato bursts of a vihuela. But there was something wrong with the sound, something fundamentally off. It felt hollow, as if the instruments were played by hands that had long since turned to dust. A figure appeared in the headlights, a silhouette against the inky blackness. It was a man, dressed in a charro suit, the silver buttons gleaming like malevolent eyes. He stood in the middle of the road, his back to Elias, his head bowed, the violin tucked under his chin. He was playing, the bow moving with an eerie, rhythmic precision. Elias slammed on the brakes, the truck skidding to a halt. The figure didn't move. The music continued, a haunting, mournful serenade that seemed to seep into his bones, chilling him to the core. He switched off the engine, the silence that followed heavy and oppressive. The only sound was the wind, whispering across the parched earth, and the faint, almost imperceptible scrape of the violin bow. "Hello?" Elias called out, his voice a dry, brittle croak. The figure didn't respond. It remained motionless, its back still turned. Elias, despite the icy dread that gripped him, couldn't resist the morbid curiosity. He opened the truck door, the metal creaking in the silence, and stepped out onto the cracked asphalt. The air was thick with the scent of dust and something else, something metallic and acrid, like old blood. He approached the figure slowly, his footsteps echoing in the vast emptiness. As he drew closer, he could see the details of the charro suit, the intricate silver embroidery that seemed to writhe in the dim moonlight. The man's sombrero was pulled low over his face, obscuring his features. "Excuse me?" Elias said, his voice trembling slightly. "Are you all right?" The figure finally moved. It turned slowly, the movement stiff and unnatural, like a puppet manipulated by unseen strings. The moonlight illuminated its face, and Elias recoiled in horror. It wasn't a face. It was a skull, bleached white by the desert sun, the empty sockets staring at him with a chilling, vacant intensity. The skin was gone, rotted away, leaving only the bare bones, the teeth bared in a silent, macabre grin. The violin continued to play, the bow moving across the strings with a ghostly, mechanical precision. The music seemed to emanate from the skull itself, a mournful, skeletal serenade. Elias stumbled back, his heart pounding in his chest. He tried to scream, but no sound came out, He turned and ran, his feet pounding against the asphalt, the music chasing him, a relentless, haunting melody. He reached the truck, fumbled with the keys, and finally managed to start the engine. He slammed the truck into gear and sped away, the headlights cutting through the darkness, the music fading into the distance. He didn't look back. He didn't dare. He drove, his hands shaking, his eyes wide with terror, until the sun began to rise, painting the desert sky in hues of orange and pink. He pulled over at the first sign of civilization, a small, dusty town with a single gas station and a handful of dilapidated buildings. He stumbled into the gas station, his face pale and drawn, his clothes covered in dust. The old gas station attendant looked up from his newspaper, his eyes widening in surprise. "You look like you've seen a ghost, son." Elias nodded, his voice hoarse. I saw him. The Mariachi." The old man's eyes flickered with a knowing dread. "He got you, didn't he? He played for you." Elias nodded again, unable to speak. "He's been playing out there for a long time," the old man said, his voice low and somber. "They say he was a famous mariachi back in the old days, but he made a deal with the devil, traded his soul for fame and fortune. When he died, the devil came to collect, but he couldn't take him. He was cursed to play forever, his music a lament for his lost soul." "Why?" Elias whispered, his voice trembling. "Why does he play?" "They say he's looking for someone to take his place," the old man said, his eyes fixed on Elias. "Someone to play for him, to carry his curse." Elias felt a chill run down his spine. He understood now. The music wasn't just a lament, it was a lure. He spent the next few days in the town, haunted by the music, the skeletal face of the mariachi burned into his memory. He couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. The music echoed in his ears, a constant, mournful reminder of his encounter. He tried to leave, to drive away, but the truck wouldn't start. It just sat there, a rusted, useless husk. He was trapped. One night, as he lay in his motel room staring at the ceiling, the music started again, faint at first, but growing louder, closer. He could hear the rhythmic thump of the guitarra, the sharp staccato bursts of the vihuela, and the mournful wail of the violin. He knew what he had to do. He had to face him. He walked out into the desert, following the music, his heart pounding in his chest. The moon was full, casting a pale, eerie glow over the landscape. He found the mariachi standing in the middle of the road, his back to him, his head bowed, the violin tucked under his chin. The music was louder now, a haunting, skeletal serenade. Elias approached him slowly, his footsteps echoing in the silence. The mariachi turned, his skull face illuminated by the moonlight, his empty socket staring at him with a chilling, vacant intensity. He held out the violin, his bony fingers beckoning. "Play," he rasped, his voice a dry, hollow whisper. Elias hesitated, his hand trembling. He didn't want to touch the instrument to take on the curse, but he knew he had no choice. He reached out and took the violin, his fingers wrapping around the cold, smooth wood. He lifted the bow and placed it on the strings. The music changed. It was still mournful, still haunting, but there was a new element to it, a raw, desperate energy. He played, his fingers moving across the strings, guided by an unseen force. The music flowed from him, a torrent of grief and despair. The mariachi nodded, his skull face tilting slightly. He stepped back, his bony fingers releasing the guitarra. The music continued, the violin and guitarra blending together, creating a haunting, melancholic melody. Elias played, his eyes fixed on the mariachi, his soul consumed by the music. He was no longer Elias. He was the mariachi, his music a lament for his lost soul, a lure for the next victim. The desert wind carried the music across the vast, empty expanse, a mournful serenade that echoed through the night. The music of the mariachi, a haunting reminder of the price of fame, the curse of a deal with the devil, and the endless, desolate loneliness of the Chihuahuan desert. Any traveler who drives through the desert may hear the lonesome song. and it is said that if the song stops and a new musician plays, the curse is passed on.